Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alyssa, and today we are talking about my 10 essential spices. So these are the spices that I think everybody should have in their cupboard. They're the most versatile. They're the ones that I use all the time in my cooking, and you guys have been asking for this video for quite a while, so I'm really excited to share it with you today. I've actually partnered with my favorite spice company for today's video, which is of course very appropriate, and that company is Simply Organic Spices. If you are unfamiliar with Simply Organic, it is by far the best spice company out there. Of course, all of their spices are organic, but they are also super flavorful. When you open them up, they are just so potent and aromatic. I love all of them, and I always have a fully stocked cabinet full of their spices. All of the spices that I mentioned in today's video will be linked in the description box below. I will also link to the Simply Organic website so you can just browse their products and kind of see what they have to offer. There is so much to choose from, and I know you guys are going to fall in love with their spices just as I have. So let's go ahead and dive into today's video. So the first spice on my list is cinnamon, and I cannot imagine a world without cinnamon. It is by far my most favorite spice. I use it every single day, whether that's in my smoothies, I sprinkle it on apples with almond butter as a snack, stirring it into oatmeal, I use it in baking, and it's just such a versatile spice. Of course, it tastes delicious. It just goes with everything. And now that we're moving into fall, it's even more perfect because it has that great kind of warming quality, which is amazing in fall dishes. You can also use cinnamon in savory cooking. So curries and things like that, you can add a sprinkle of cinnamon and it really heightens the flavor. What I love about the Simply Organic cinnamon is that they have a few different options. So they have a few different varieties that you can choose from. I have their just regular cinnamon, which is so lovely. They also have a Ceylon cinnamon, and I just encourage you guys to check out their website because there are a few different options to choose from, and you can never go wrong with cinnamon, in my opinion. The second spice on my list is garlic powder. I am a huge fan of garlic. I use it in my cooking all the time. But what I love about having garlic powder on hand is that you don't have to chop fresh garlic, you don't have to worry about burning fresh garlic, and you don't have to worry about having fresh garlic on hand. When you have garlic powder, you can use it like you would in cooking, so you can saute with it, you can stir it into soups. I love to just stir it into quinoa to make it a little bit more flavorful and rich. And of course, I also love to sprinkle it on my popcorn. It's just so good. It's great in hummus, and I also love using it in salad dressing. What I really like about the Simply Organic garlic is the texture. Sometimes I've found that garlic powder can be a little bit coarse, and when you sprinkle it on, it just doesn't dissolve correctly. This one is amazing. It's perfect for sprinkling, it's perfect for mixing, and it obviously tastes amazing. And I do just want to mention as we're going through this video that I have also written a blog post to go along. So if you want to get some recipe ideas for the individual spices that I'm talking about, head on over to the blog. You can read more about the individual spices and get some recipe ideas as well. Number 3 on my list is turmeric. Turmeric, I'm sure you guys know, is famous for staining all things yellow, but it also has a lovely flavor and it goes well with everything. I actually created a video on the channel a while back that shows you how to use turmeric 3 different ways, so I'll make sure to link to that below. It gives you a few different creative options for using turmeric, including turmeric oatmeal. And if you guys haven't tried turmeric milk yet, I definitely recommend you try that. It's perfect for the fall. It's so cozy, it's warm, it's really kind of grounding, and it's a great way to wind down at the end of the day. So I definitely recommend that you guys try that. It doesn't overpower, which is great. Just make sure to not use too much because it might stain your blender jar. But overall, turmeric is definitely a staple in my cabinet, and I can't imagine it without it. Number 4 on my list is chili powder. I love chili powder. I love that it comes in a bunch of different flavors and heat levels. This one is just their standard chili powder. It's not super hot, but Simply Organic does have a few others. They have a chipotle, which is amazing, and they also have an ancho, which has a little bit more heat. But chili powder is great because it goes really well with quinoa. Quinoa, of course, hails from South America, and chilies and peppers and all those kind of rich South American / Latin flavors, and chili powder is perfect for that. So I love mixing it into my Mexican quinoa, and there's a bunch of recipes that I have on the blog that I use chili powder. I also use it just to roast sweet potatoes, and I love actually adding it to my popcorn. So chili garlic popcorn, it's so good. Number 5 is Italian seasoning, and this is by far one of the best spices and most used spices in my cabinet. I hail from an Italian-American family, so I grew up with Italian cooking all the time, especially when I go and visit my mom's family down in Delaware, Pennsylvania area. We have a ton of Italian feasts. And I love Italian seasoning because it blends all of those traditional Italian herbs into one seasoning. So when you feel like you want to get some of that Italian flavor, whether it's cooking with a marinara sauce, maybe you're making some sort of dressing, or you just want to kind of make like a pasta with some flavoring, I definitely recommend that you use Italian seasoning because it will save you space, because all of those spices are in one jar rather than having like 4 to 5 jars of individual spices. And the one that comes from Simply Organic has a really delicate and amazing balance. The flavor is on point. I love adding it into my marinara, like I mentioned, and also just stirring it into pasta. Like I'll make pesto pasta and just put some of this and sprinkle it on, stir it all in, and it just really heightens the flavor, and it's so delicious. So next on my list is cumin, and actually the next 3 are kind of in the same genre. And I love cumin. It is one of my favorite spices. I find that it's really versatile. It goes really well with the Mexican, Latin, South American type of dishes, but it also is traditional in Indian cuisine. So whether you want something that's a little bit more warming and curry flavor, you can add some cumin to it to heighten the flavor. Or you can go with that more Mexican-inspired things with chili and pepper and onion and lime and cilantro. And also cumin, of course, pairs perfectly with that. I love adding cumin into my guacamole. It's actually my mom's secret ingredient to her guacamole. Sorry, Mom. And it really just adds a lovely flavor to your dishes. I use a generous amount of this in my sweet potato black bean quinoa chili. That is one of the most popular recipes on my blog. It's something that I make time and time again, especially in the winter months. And it's one of my favorite ways to use cumin. And make sure to check out the blog post that I mentioned earlier because it lists that recipe as well as a few other recipes that use cumin as well. We're continuing with the pepper theme, and my next favorite spice is cayenne. And I like to use cayenne really to just add heat to things. You guys know I love spicy food. I talk about that a lot on my channel. But what I love about cayenne is that it doesn't have a strong flavor aside from the heat that it brings. So unlike chili, which you will really taste, you can kind of get that smokiness from the chili powder, cayenne doesn't, I find, have a very strong flavor. A little goes a long way, I will warn you. So sometimes I have added like half a teaspoon in my recipes, and I've had people comment that it's too spicy. So if you aren't a spice fan, I would say just start with a little bit, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon in your cooking. And like I mentioned, it doesn't have a strong flavor profile, so you really can go with any type of cuisine. If you're looking for heat in a curry, you can add cayenne. Any sort of stir fry or like a Mexican quinoa bake, anything like that, cayenne is just a really great way to add some spice. We're getting down the list here, but my 8th is smoked paprika. This is one of my favorite spices. My favorite way to use it is on popcorn. I love the combination of smoked paprika and nutritional yeast. It is so good, and it's one of my favorite movie night snacks. But aside from popcorn, you can also use smoked paprika in a lot of Latin American flavored cuisines. So I love to add it into like a black bean, corn, and quinoa salad. Love adding it into chilies. I love adding it into a Mexican flavored pasta. I don't know if you guys have ever tried that, but it is so good, like a taco flavored pasta. So good. And also you can make paprika roasted vegetables, which are so good. It pairs really well with things like cauliflower, sweet potato, regular potato, paprika. Sweet potato fries are delicious. So it's a really versatile spice. It does have a stronger flavor. So if you aren't a fan of this kind of smokiness, I would say try regular paprika because the smoked variety does have a smokiness to it, but I personally love it. They offer both, so you can try both. In the description box below, make sure to check out their website because they do have both flavors. And like I mentioned, it's just a super versatile spice. It goes really well with a bunch of stuff, so you can check out the blog post because I have linked individual recipes for you to try. Okay, we only have 2 more, and my next on the list, so number 9, is ground nutmeg. I love ground nutmeg in my baking. It's also one of my favorite spices to add into my matcha lattes. It is part of that kind of pumpkin spice flavor. So anytime you think of a pumpkin spice, it often has nutmeg in it. So pumpkin pie uses nutmeg, pumpkin spice lattes use nutmeg, and really all of that sort of pumpkin-y apple fall baking, nutmeg is a staple in that. I also actually love adding nutmeg to my cauliflower soup. Sounds strange, but it just adds this really nice kind of warming property to it, and it makes the flavor so good, really enhances it. And that healing holiday soup, which is my cauliflower soup that I'm talking about, I've linked that in the blog post, and it's just a really fun way, kind of unexpected way to use nutmeg. But I would say that the most common way of using nutmeg is definitely in baking. I have a ton of pumpkin recipes on my blog, so I've linked those in that blog post as well. And if you guys are just as excited about pumpkin and fall baking as I am, definitely recommend you pick up a jar because it is an essential. And then my final spice is curry powder. I love using curry powder with roasted vegetables, especially in the fall and winter. All of those kind of root and warm, hearty vegetables, they're so delicious with a little bit of coconut oil, some curry powder, salt, and pepper. Roast them and they turn out perfectly. Of course, curry powder can also be used in a lot of Indian cuisine, so a lot of Indian dals or Indian curries. A lot of Indian dishes use curry powder. I have a few recipes on the blog that use curry powder, so I've linked those in that blog post as well. It is definitely on the more warming and grounding side of things, and it does have a strong flavor profile. So I would recommend that if you guys are unsure, if you haven't really experimented enough with curry powder and you don't feel super comfortable with it, start on the smaller side, maybe a teaspoon, and then you can kind of increase from there depending on how your taste buds react to it. It's definitely one of my favorite spices. I don't use it all the time because it is so powerful and it has a very distinct curry flavor. And it also is lovely with crispy chickpeas. It makes a great snack, so curry roasted crispy chickpeas are so good. There's really a ton of ways to use it, and like I mentioned, I've linked all of those in the blog post, so I definitely recommend you guys check that out. And that pretty much does it, my friends. Those are my 10 essential spices. Of course, I have a lot more in my cabinet and I'm always kind of picking and choosing, but those are the ones that I turn to the most. They're the ones that are on my lower shelf, which means I reach for them the most. And I think that they have the most versatility. So if you haven't picked up any of those, I've linked all of the individual spices in the description box below. I have also linked to Simply Organic's website, which has their entire product line. You can browse all of their spices, and honestly, you can't go wrong. Their spices are so amazing. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching. I also want to thank Simply Organic for joining us in today's video. Don't forget to check out that blog post that I mentioned. It's in the description box below and it has a bunch of recipe ideas. So if you're looking for some inspiration, go check out that blog post. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel already, I would love for you to join us here on YouTube. There's a red button right below this video that says subscribe, so you can hit that button and it will automatically subscribe you. Other than that, again, thank you guys for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye!